So this scrum deep in the New Brunswick end of the field. Referee gets them set. So Owen, I guess the other thing to mention now, we've covered events here at this rugby pitch before, and I actually mentioned to you the other day when I was here when you were putting the lines on and that this field typically handles rain and a lot of moisture really well. It drains really well, but there was really torrential rain. What might that change in terms of the field conditions and how these teams might have to deal with it?
Well, with the field, it's going to be moist, as they say, but the only thing would be the top layer of grass will make the ball slick, so there's not going to be the big long passes from the fly half out to the outside center. It's going to be just quick. Everyone's going to be close together and just try to get the ball quickly into hands in as short as passes as possible with the wet ball, so to try to minimize the knock-ons and such like that.
And the Nova Scotia player down on the ground, that's Kyron Boone. He's a little bit slow to get up, so they'll check on him and make sure he's okay. But he certainly seems to be in a little discomfort right now as he's down on the field. So they'll come out and tend to Kieran. So while we've got a quick break, we'll step aside and let you know about some of the fantastic sponsors who are making these live stream broadcasts possible this weekend. You're watching the 2018 Atlantic Canadian Rugby Championships. From Truro, Nova Scotia. We'll be back. The 2018 Atlantic Canadian Rugby Championships are proudly brought to you by Subway. Make it what you want. Wilson's Propane. It's for more than just barbecues. Truro Nissan. Innovation that excites. Events and conference services at Dalhousie Agricultural Campus, offering year-round one-stop shop services. And by Firm Foundation Media. Your content built on a firm foundation. Welcome back. Looks like Kyron Boone has been helped off the field, and don't want to speculate on the injury, but he seemed to be favoring kind of up around his shoulder neck area. More toward the collarbone, I guess, not a neck injury, but again, you don't want to speculate. But he's been helped off, so we certainly wish all the best for Kyron. Hopefully we see him back on the pitch. So a scrum, again, deep in the New Brunswick zone. New Brunswick comes out of it in a dangerous play as that kick was almost knocked down, but it goes right into the hands of Nova Scotia. They try to push their way in now as a ruck forms. Nova Scotia picks it off there. And the other thing with these conditions, as we see a strong run there coming from number 3, Mike McEachern, but the field is going to be moist and damp, but also that's going to make the ball wet. That's going to make it slick, and that's going to make it hard to handle.
It'll definitely be a forwards type game here where they keep it close, and forwards aren't known for their passing and their deep passes, so they're going to be just hanging out at the back of the ruck, just getting it quick.
Nova Scotia very close to that New Brunswick goal line. Right along that line now, that was Lucas Robledo. Robledo locks flying in the wind as he runs with that ball. Still no score here. Early stages of this first half. 2 20-minute halves for these teams. The U16 women actually playing 30-minute halves because it's only a 2-team division, so they're able to play those longer games because they do like to keep it to a maximum number of minutes per day that these teams play. So the divisions with more teams playing 2 20-minute halves for a total of a 40-minute game, but just to finish the thought, the U16 women, 30-minute halves, and the U18 men and women, and the U16 men, 20-minute halves. And Nova Scotia down close to the goal line did get the try, so they've got their first points actually of the day. They were shut out earlier by the Newfoundland and Labrador Rock, so Nova Scotia's got to feel good about getting their first points of the day on the board. And now for the conversion, this is Justin McLennan. Pretty good position for this look at the uprights for Justin. Looking to tag on the extra 2. And I think he might have mishit that one off the side of his foot. Again, you never know if it's because of the ball being extra slick. That one kind of seemed to almost slide off the side of his foot.
Yeah, it's almost like he didn't get his footing when he planted his foot to kick either.
So Nova Scotia, though, will take the try. 5-0 is your score. Nova Scotia, the U18 Keltics with their first points of this tournament. As mentioned, shut out earlier by the Rock, but they've got points on the board now. Let's see if New Brunswick can answer back, but it's Nova Scotia once again. Couple of quick offloads. They'll work it down to that right wing side. Good recovery on defense there by New Brunswick. Nova Scotia decides to just kick that ball away, and you can see when the Celtic player kicked that ball, he almost lost his footing. There's another slick little move. Tried to squirt it up the turf. Trying to get it all the way in there. That was Justin McLennan, and the plan almost worked, Owen.
Yeah, it was close. I think it skipped off the ground a little bit, and he got held up a little bit there by the New Brunswick player. Tried to touch it down, so now it would be the 22-meter dropout for New Brunswick.
So we are about 10 minutes into this first 20-minute half. This is day 1 of this 3-day event, the 2018 Atlantic Canadian Rugby Championships. Scott Squires, Owen Hutchison, third member of our broadcast team. Up above on the scaffolding doing the camera operation is Brian Fisher. Brian's been doing yeoman's work up there today, I'll tell you. Here comes Nova Scotia again. Solid run there from the big man, number 3, Mike McEachern, as he's just rumbling like an avalanche going downhill. Picked up once again. This is Lee Brickman. Brickman tries to push it forward now as Nova Scotia really seems to be trying to establish themselves up front here. Down into that corner. So close to the goal line again. They get it out of that ruck. Trying to cut it up toward the goal line. Good recovery by the defense as the New Brunswick side tries to hold up Nova Scotia right at the goal line. They're going further down the line now. Going to try for that right corner. That pass just a little bit ahead. And you see again, that ball's got to be slippery as both sides seem to be having a hard time picking it up. So there's been a few times where they've decided to kick it forward rather than just try to fumble it when they're picking it up. So another scrum down. Probably about maybe 10 meters or so from the New Brunswick goals. 5-0 here. Just a little more than halfway through half number 1 of this U18 men's match. One more game to come after this. It's going to be senior women's action. So make sure you stick around for that. That is going to be an exciting rugby match for sure. Approximately 6:30 Atlantic will be on the air with that one. Nova Scotia again able to get that ball up off the ground, inching toward the goal line. New Brunswick right now just in recovery mode here, trying to get there defensively, and the referee again blows the whistle.
There was a high tackle on New Brunswick there, even though Nova Scotia knocked it on the goal line. They were still awarded the penalty.
Over the line, do they get the try? Yes, they do. So Nova Scotia follows up their first try with another. That will extend their lead now to 10-0. As we'll wait for the conversion attempt, and we'll try to get the number of that player That just pushed that over the line for Nova Scotia. Well, based on the fact that it's going to be Justin McLennan kicking the conversion, it's Justin McLennan who scored the try, so he gets to score the try and he gets to try to convert his own try. And Justin gave himself pretty good field position here for the conversion attempt. I know it's different game, different opponent, but certainly the U18 Keltics looking a little more comfortable here in this one.
Yeah, they look a lot more confident.
So that conversion is good. That's a dozen points up now for Team Nova Scotia. We're about 14 minutes. And again, very unofficial time based on what my phone says. But approximately 14 minutes have gone by here in this first half. First 20 minutes. New Brunswick will kick off now to Nova Scotia once again. Mike McEachern, number 3 in blue for Nova Scotia. He's had a strong first half so far. And there again you see a player just kind of mishandling that ball. You got to believe it's got to be quite slick out there. That grass would be very wet from the rains that we had earlier today. And the wind as well. It was, anyone who's familiar with the Truro area, they know how windy it can get, certainly out here at the rugby club because it's so wide open. But there was a stretch there, Owen, that I thought portions of our broadcast position might go airborne during that rainfall. You had your sou'wester on, though, so you were all set.
Yeah, it was all right. Found one in the groundskeeper shed. Keep my head somewhat dry, I guess.
New Brunswick scrum. They'll try to hook it back out of there, and it does come out. Long pass. They try to work it to the middle, and again, got to be slippery out there trying to handle that ball. New Brunswick with it again. That was Alex Clark. Good job by New Brunswick trying to just force their way through in that maul. They'll work it to the other side. That was a good run there initially. Coming from number 16, Hudson Burnaby. $12-0 is your score. The U18 Nova Scotia Keltics leading the lads from New Brunswick. I want to give a big thank you to the sponsors who make the live streaming of this event possible this weekend. Truro Nissan, Subway Atlantic, Wilson's Propane, and of course, Dalhousie Services from the Dal AC. Providing accommodations for our crew here this weekend, as well as many of the teams as well, Owen.
Yeah, I think there's 3 or 4 teams staying up at the AC this weekend.
Here's a good run for Nova Scotia now. Couple of stiff arms there and about a 25-meter gain on that run. So that's a good chunk of real estate picked up there by Nova Scotia.
Nova Scotia was awarded another penalty there. New Brunswick, the rucking player played it with his hands. I think he thought the ruck was over because there was no one. He was the last one there, but it's still a ruck. They were still engaged with Nova Scotia, so
and that came at
the penalty.
That came at the end of a very nice run by Will Keynes as he got the big gain. So once again, Nova Scotia down deep in the New Brunswick end of the field. We'll have a line out now, controlled by Nova Scotia. Look for the player to get lifted high into the air. I always enjoy watching these lineouts. I'm afraid of heights, though, so I don't think I'd be the guy getting lifted up. Plus, I'm probably too heavy. Good job by Nova Scotia to receive that line out. They'll maul that ball forward now, and coming out of the pile, there's that man again, Mike McEachern. Nice little offload over to the side, and I believe it was Ethan McLean who gets it in, but that was all started again by number 3, Mike McEachern. He's been a dangerous force for this Nova Scotia side here today, and another 5 points on the board for the Keltics.
Yeah, Nova Scotia wanted to set up their maul off the line out there, but then the prop seen the opening there where there was no one covering the blindside wing, so he took it upon himself, picked the ball off the back instead of driving it more, and found his winger there and try time in the corner.
So a very tricky conversion try coming up here. So McLennan with the try. He's somewhere there, just out of your frame. And there's a big boot from a very sharp angle. And just couldn't quite bend it in. Couldn't bend it like Beckham on that one. Gave it the old college try, though. So 17-0 now as Nova Scotia tacks on another try and increase their lead. New Brunswick will kick it off once again. So things certainly going a little more the way of the Keltics in this game compared to their opening match against Newfoundland and Labrador. As mentioned, Nova Scotia shut out by the lads from the Rock in the first game of the day, 17-0 your score there. And New Brunswick, as mentioned as well, they were on the short end of a 45-5 score against Prince Edward Island. But right now it's Nova Scotia who's looking solid to perhaps chalk up their first win, but lots of rugby left here. Getting down close to the end of this half, I would say there's no more than a minute or two left, very unofficially by my count, of course. New Brunswick kicks that ball down deep into the Nova Scotia end. And a good recovery there, closing the distance to get that tackle for New Brunswick. Now they've got to go on offense, and that was all started by that tracking down on defense by the New Brunswick player. Couple of quick offloads now as New Brunswick looks to work it over toward the middle. Charging forward with it there, that was Josiah Rogerson. Josiah, young man out of Sussex, New Brunswick. Did you know that Sussex is the dairy capital of Canada?
Had no idea.
Well, now you know. That is a claim to fame for Sussex, New Brunswick. I've driven through it many times. And it is indeed. I can tell you actually a lot of the different capitals. I know that Oxford is the blueberry capital of Canada. You seem unimpressed by my geography knowledge.
I know towns from New Brunswick and Nova Scotia by which logo and hockey team their minor hockey is from my old reffing days.
Okay, well, that's not a bad way to distinguish either. Out of that set piece, Nova Scotia comes away with it. But again, it's New Brunswick now. Is New Brunswick getting a little bit of energy here? There's a nice run. Dashing one way, darting back the other. That's number 13 for New Brunswick. John Fries, another young man from Sussex area. So the young men from Sussex making their presence felt here for Team New Brunswick. Back into the hands of Hudson Burnaby now. Burnaby from up north, Campbellton way. It's great when the team managers or the coaches actually email you the roster list because you get all the information like where they're from and stuff like that. So gives a play-by-play guy a little bit of extra anecdotes, some little things to talk about, other than the fact that Sussex is the dairy capital of Canada. We have another scrum down now. It's a Nova Scotia scrum. McClellan will put it in. They'll try to hook it back out quickly, and they do. They get it out very quickly. Nova Scotia has been under a little bit of pressure here by New Brunswick in the last few minutes as we are down in the waning seconds, I'm sure, of this first 20 minutes. Nova Scotia works it to the middle. Little underhand offload there. Almost got picked off. And it might have been a high tackle there, perhaps.
High tackle on New Brunswick.
That's over right at the sideline, and then the official over on the sideline almost had a collision with the New Brunswick player, but everybody's doing okay. On rushing to get the ball there, that was Ethan Richardson. So 17-0 your score. I would imagine the referee will go to his whistle here very shortly to end this first half. It's been a good one so far for the U18 Keltics. Line out here for Nova Scotia. Andrew Little throws it in. Good job there by Nova Scotia to get that line out. Big punishing run right up the middle there from Will Keynes. Looked like that might go to ruck for a minute, but it comes right back up. The last few minutes of this half, New Brunswick has tightened up their defense quite a bit.
Yeah, they, I don't know if during the last try their coaches might have went to the end zone and had a chat. They were just coming up slow. They weren't going on the ball. But now they've seen they're coming up quick, and they're stopping Nova Scotia right at the gain line. So,
well, I know there's not a lot of time left in this first half, but if New Brunswick could somehow punch one in here and get a try, and as I say that, referee blows it down, but that would have been a huge lift for New Brunswick. However, the first half does come to an end. New Brunswick was definitely coming on in the latter stages of that first half, but it's the Keltics from Nova Scotia who lead this one after 20 minutes. It's 17 for Nova Scotia and so far 0 for New Brunswick. Second half action about 5 minutes away. We'll step aside, take a break. You're watching the 2018 Atlantic Canadian Rugby Championships live and exclusively from Truro, Nova Scotia. We'll be back. The 2018 Atlantic Canadian Rugby Championships are proudly brought to you by Subway. Make it what you want. Wilson's Propane. It's for more than just barbecues. Truro Nissan. Innovation that excites. Events and conference services at Dalhousie Agricultural Campus, offering year-round one-stop shop services. And by Firm Foundation Media. Your content built on a firm foundation. The 2018 Atlantic Canadian Rugby Championships are proudly brought to you by Subway. Make it what you want. Wilson's Propane. It's for more than just barbecues. Truro Nissan. Innovation that excites. Events and conference services at Dalhousie Agricultural Campus, offering year-round one-stop shop services. And by Firm Foundation Media. Your content built on a firm foundation. Just underway here in this second half. Just a good run moments ago from Hickey for Nova Scotia here. They try to barrel their way down again, getting close to that New Brunswick goal line, and that ball just kind of rolled up over top of the player who was on the ground. Nova Scotia again. One quick pass. Now they're going to try and scrape it along the ground, bounce it in and run onto it. Can they get there? New Brunswick reaches at first. Not a bad strategy on a wet field.
No, that if the end zones were a little bit bigger, if it was a regular day in the summer when we had the 22-meter end zones, I think Nova Scotia's winger might have scored there. But with using the 3 fields, with the 3rd field on the go today, we have to shorten our end zones to 10 meters.
Nova Scotia now will play it over on that far side. And they do indeed get in for another try. So a really good start here to this second half for Team Nova Scotia, kind of picking up where they started in the first half. New Brunswick came back a little bit, regrouped defensively, and actually had a little bit of pressure on Nova Scotia. But that's a great start here in this second half for the Keltics.
Yeah, it looked like the last 5-7 minutes of the first half there, New Brunswick or Nova Scotia, kind of let up and let New Brunswick take the game to them instead of taking the game to New Brunswick. But I think maybe at a halftime chat, the coaches got them back to where what made them have a 17-0 lead.
So Justin McClellan with the look at the uprights here, a extremely sharp angle. Try and get this conversion through. You can kind of see him tilting his head there, trying to get the best look he can at the uprights. That's a good attempt. And I don't think that missed by much. That was a pretty good attempt from there.
Close for our vantage point. He definitely had the distance.
Just after 6 p.m. local time here in Truro, Nova Scotia. Bringing you live coverage of the 2018 Atlantic Canadian Rugby Championships. Brought to you by Truro Nissan, Wilson's Propane, Subway Atlantic, and of course, the Dalhousie Agricultural Campus. Nova Scotia now receives that kick. Nice quick offload and off to the races. A great run there. Taking that nice little offload after the kickoff was received by Nova Scotia, and they just gained a gigantic chunk of field and taking it again down deep into the New Brunswick zone. But that was just a great run there by Nova Scotia. They try to push it up the middle. Making that run, I believe it was Jordan Forrest, number 6. Now they'll work it back toward the middle, trying to get it into the end zone, and they do. Another try for Nova Scotia. So a couple of quick strikes here to start this second half for the Keltics, and they've extended this lead now to 27-0.
It's something to notice when we were doing the U16 Keltics game during penalties and stuff like that. They were hesitant and took their time and were trying to be methodical with it. With the under-18 team, it's a total opposite. They're just tapping quick and go, and they're catching New Brunswick on their heels.
That last try scored by Lucas Robledo. And the run that got Nova Scotia so deep and kind of set them up to get that latest try was a great run by Jordan Forrest, who picked up a big chunk of field as he got it deep into the New Brunswick zone, and then that led to the Robledo try. Now we'll have McClellan. Pretty good setup here for this conversion. And off the upright. It looked good off of his foot, and it just kind of drifted to the right. And you can kind of see McClellan going, I thought I had that one, and it looked good initially.
It looked good from here.
Just kind of drifted right and smacked that upright dead center. But I guess if it were a tie game or a much closer game, he probably would feel a little bit worse about that miss.
Absolutely.
John Freeze kicking off for New Brunswick. Nova Scotia receives it smartly once again. See if they can get a ruck forming here on the ground, but Nova Scotia gets to it quickly, and they move it quickly. A spring in the step of the U18 Keltics in this game, no doubt about it. Here they come again. Great run down the sideline there from Ethan McCarthy. He goes for about 20 meters in that last run. They work it again. Trying to get it up through the middle. New Brunswick just hanging on now, trying to prevent Nova Scotia from getting another try. Great fake pass there. Nova Scotia again driving it deep. A little bit of a delay. Kind of threw off the New Brunswick defense just a little. Nova Scotia not wasting any time at all, getting that ball up off the ground, not letting any ruck form at all. They are just moving, moving, moving. I think right now, Owen, that Nova Scotia senses that they've got New Brunswick on their heels just a little.
Yep. I think they don't want their defense to get set.
And another try in the corner. It was all started again. A nice move there by Lucas Robledo. And it's finished off by Nova Scotia once again. So Nova Scotia with yet another try. And once again, we will see Mr. Justin McClellan. Now, I know that obviously you can't see wherever you're watching this live stream what Owen and I have been in behind here, but because of the wild wind and rain and inclement weather and trying to protect our electronic equipment, the scaffolding that we're under in our broadcast location, as we see that conversion try miss, but they had a large white tarp put right up in front of it to block the wind and the rain, and we literally were calling this game blind. Well, not so much blind, but off of the tiny little monitor. But now we have had a superhero of all superheroes come by with an X-Acto knife, cut down the wires, and has cleared away our tarp. I'll have to take a picture of it perhaps and tweet it out later. Follow me, Scott_FFM. But now we've got a full view of the field. It's like we've been let out of a can, Owen.
Yeah, Big Kev said let there be light, and he made us have light.
Now I hope we can get it back up as quickly if we get hit by another rain cell. So 32 on the board for Nova Scotia here. It's been a very good performance by this U18 Celtic side. And even though they lost the game earlier, it wasn't like they were blown off the field by the Rock.
No.
They were right there. They just couldn't get anything going offensively against Newfoundland and Labrador. But they've been clicking here today.
Yeah, they definitely have their offense going here with their the second game of the tournament. I think if they would have got a bounce or two in the first game, they might have been closer or even maybe even beat the Rock. But I think a couple-hour break here, I think they're firing all cylinders now.
Well, that's the thing, and the U18 side from Newfoundland and Labrador, the Rock, that's a very good side. So I think even though the Celtics lost 17-0, I think there was some positives that the coaching staff could have built on with this team, and they're obviously showing it here against New Brunswick.
Yeah, they could come out here and just forget the Rock game and think hopefully we meet the Rock on Sunday and the results are our way instead of their way.
And another tough game here for New Brunswick. Credit to these young men from New Brunswick. They're not hanging their heads. They're not giving up. But it's been a tough couple of matches here. Their game against PEI was not at all the way they wanted it to on the losing end of a 45-5 score. And right now, trailing by 32 here as we play about halfway through this second 20 minutes. So a scrum deep in Nova Scotia territory, just around the 23-meter mark. Nova Scotia scrum. And that scrum broke down almost immediately.
New Brunswick was ordered a penalty there. The Nova Scotia scrum, you get a penalty if you don't hold your own weight in the scrum. So it's kind of a safety thing. New Brunswick had their way with Nova Scotia there, and was fortunate enough to get the penalty, and they snuck one in the corner right quick after after they got the penalty, they didn't wait for Nova Scotia to set their defense. They just tapped it quick and scored one in the corner.
So a positive for New Brunswick here as they get on the board with their first try. And because, as you mentioned, it was scored deep in the corner, that's going to make this conversion attempt from a very difficult angle right over by the touchline. Kick is up. Line is good. Just not enough oomph.
You got to think, too, kicking and running, you got cleats that are wet. They probably weigh an extra 2 or 3 pounds right now. It's like running with lead on your feet.
So even though the conversion missed, something good for New Brunswick as they do get their first points of this contest. So 5 on the board for New Brunswick. And Nova Scotia now will kick it back to our friends from the lovely province of New Brunswick. I get to spend a lot of time in New Brunswick, actually, in the spring and fall. I do play-by-play for the Moncton Magic, professional team in the National Basketball League of Canada, so get to spend quite a bit of time in the hub city of Moncton. My best friend lives in Riverview, so I actually enjoy that area up there. It's quite nice. Robledo looking for it. He reached in there, but the referee blows it down. So it's going to be a Nova Scotia scrum, I believe.
Yeah, it was a knockout on the kickoff to New Brunswick. Nova Scotia had a chance to play the ball, but no advantage came from it, so it's their put in now.
Now, was it just me, or did when that tarp come down, did the rain start again?
Yep. As soon as I think Big Kev cut the last zip tie, it started to rain again.
Always the way.
I think we might be all right. It's not that sideways stuff that was coming earlier this afternoon.
Yes, that was an experience in and of itself. Horizontal rain, always fun. Another scrum down, this one a little closer to the near touchline. Just to the right of our broadcast position, Scott Squires, Owen Hutchison, and Brian Fisher. Your broadcast team for today, bringing you all of the action from day one. We will be here all 3 days from this Atlantic Canadian Rugby Championship. And that scrum started to wheel just a little bit as New Brunswick seemed to get the good push, but Nova Scotia comes away with it.
That's the thing, once again, with the U18s. New Brunswick looked like they were going to push over the ball, but once they got to that meter, you could hear the referee, Mike Dickey, holler, "All right, now, White, hold the push, hold the push." So they couldn't push anymore, and that resulted in Nova Scotia getting the ball back to the right man, be able to get it out of the scrum quick.
32-5, Nova Scotia leading here. Second game of the day for both of these teams. Both teams coming in at 0-1, looking for their first victory. And in a tournament like this, you definitely want to avoid going down 0-2 on day one. Doesn't mean that you're out of it, but it certainly puts you in a little tougher position to make it to Sunday's gold medal championship game. So a little bit of discussion now. I'm not sure what it's about. Or maybe it's just the referee wants to make sure that they get set the right way in this scrum. Over on that far side of the field. New Brunswick scrum. Put in there by Ryan Craig. Ryan from Harborview in New Brunswick. Wearing the 10 in white and green. And another delay here now. Looks like someone's tying their shoe. Well, there's nothing like holding up a rugby game because your shoe came untied.
Yeah, it looks like his shoe came completely, his cleat came completely off. He just fired it back on there, so.
Yeah, he'll tie it up nice and tight. We'll get back underway here as we push through this second half. One more game to come today, and it'll come your way at approximately 6:30 p.m. Atlantic. And it is going to be senior women's action, so that is going to be a good time for sure. Now we're set. New Brunswick scrum. comes out. New Brunswick will control off the fingertips. Nova Scotia closed the gap quickly. Just a reminder that senior women's game will be between the Newfoundland and Labrador Rock and the Nova Scotia Keltics. A full 1 hour game, 2 30-minute halves between the two senior women's combatants. Nova Scotia again charging downfield. Fans urging the Keltics to move quickly. Here's Robledo now. He's been dangerous. 7 in blue. Look at Robledo. Little offload to the corner. Can they get there? No, I think they just got stopped just before the goal line, or just before the... See what the call was there. I think a penalty got called on Nova Scotia. Owen.
Penalty on Nova Scotia there for not coming through the gate in the ruck. Someone came in from the side, and New Brunswick with the... I'm assuming try to find touch here and get out of trouble.
So New Brunswick will kick it away. Looks like that's going to go for touch. Jumping in the air to try and grab that ball was Alex Otto, but it goes out of bounds. So we'll have a line out. This is Jackie Wu trying to wipe that ball off on his rugby shorts just to give it a little bit drier to make sure he's got a bit better grip to throw this line out. Referee didn't like the way they were set, thought that New Brunswick was cheating a little bit on that line out.
They didn't give, there's supposed to be a meter gap in between both teams. New Brunswick was over more than the referee thought to the Nova Scotia side.
And off that line out, it was a Nova Scotia player actually who got a hand on it first. But again, the referee blows it down. So play is kind of ground to a bit of a halt here the last minute or two. So we'll have another scrum. New Brunswick scrum once again, Ryan Craig. Once they're set, he'll put it in. Referee keeps a close eye. Ball spun into that scrum. And it's moved back. Craig picks it out of there. New Brunswick now will just kick that ball forward. Nova Scotia at this point, I'm sure that they know that time winding down in this second half, they've got a comfortable lead as Robledo charges upfield with that ball and then bounces down to the turf. But Nova Scotia, just to finish that point, you know that they just would be happy just to keep possession down in the New Brunswick end of the field, Owen, and just kind of run out the clock here.
Eat some time.
And I got to give credit to the fans who have hung in here through some inclement weather this afternoon during the earlier game when it was absolutely just torrential rains. Fans are out in their lawn chairs with their ponchos on, and you couldn't really use an umbrella because it was too windy. But and again, just a nice group of fans on hand here on a Friday evening, just past 6:20 p.m. Atlantic time. Another scrum. Certainly the last 5 or 6 minutes, the pace is really slowed.
Really slowed down.
You can just see the players, their uniforms are just dripping wet. Hair soaked with sweat and water from the turf. As you mentioned, Owen, I'm sure their cleats are just absolutely soaked through to the socks. I think both these teams will be glad to get into a hot shower and get changed up after this one. Here's New Brunswick now. Little work to do, though, before they get there. Quick offload on this near wing. Nova Scotia trying to wrap up that ball carrier down to the ground. At number 11 for New Brunswick. And I don't have an 11 on my roster sheet for New Brunswick, so he shall remain nameless. But it was a good run nonetheless for 11 in white for New Brunswick. 32-5 is your score. U18 Nova Scotia Keltics leading New Brunswick here. Not a whole lot of time left in this second half. Things hold up this way. Nova Scotia will take their record to an even 1-1. New Brunswick will fall to the unenviable record of 0-2. But again, lots of rugby left to go. New Brunswick can bounce back, get a couple of wins tomorrow. And that line out goes right over the New Brunswick player and into the hands of Nova Scotia, and Nova Scotia will just kick it out to touch. And that signals the end of the game, so the game ends on a ball that gets kicked out of bounds for touch, but nobody else will get to touch it for the remainder of this one. 40 minutes have been played. As the teams shake hands, it's Nova Scotia, the U18 Keltics, who get the victory 32-5 over New Brunswick. They take their record to 1-1. New Brunswick falls to 0-2. Overall, though, Owen, a tough game for New Brunswick, but I think the Keltics will feel very good about this bounce-back game.
The game plan was for the Keltics. I think it was the game plan for the Rock, too, is they keep the ball in the forwards and just pound it, then spin it out and keep it simple. They stuck with their game plan today and just was a better game plan on this day, this match for against New Brunswick. And I mean, New Brunswick played well on defense as well, so they can take some things back to this, have a chat in the hotel tonight, get warmed up, and like you said, it's a 3-day tournament, 4 teams. You're not out till Sunday.
So Nova Scotia 1-1, New Brunswick 0-2 in men's U18 action. Once again, your final score, the Nova Scotia Keltics defeating New Brunswick 32-5. On behalf of Owen Hutchison, Brian Fisher, I'm Scott Squires. Thanks very much for watching this game. One more game to come here on day 1 of the 2018 Rugby Atlantics, and it's going to be senior women's action. Stick around. It's going to be a dandy. The senior Nova Scotia Celtic women taking on the women's team from Newfoundland and Labrador, the Rock, the Celtics. 6:30, roughly Atlantic. Don't miss it. We'll be back.